Hello, Year 11. Happy New Year. Hope you had a good holiday. So this week we're remote learning. So there'll be 3 lessons this week. This video counts as 2 lessons together with the PowerPoint as well. At the end of this lesson there will be an exam question which you have to submit an answer to. At the end of every lesson or every 2 lessons there will be a task that you have to complete and hand in on Google Classroom. It's non-negotiable, it's compulsory, it needs to be done. Your exams are still going ahead, and that means that you need the content in order to pass those exams. If for any reason your exams are cancelled, then they will be asking us to provide evidence before we submit your grade that you've been completing work during periods of lockdown. So this really is something that you must engage with. I've decided to record lessons rather than live teach. If you have any difficulties with any of the work and you need further help, you can email on our school email addresses, and obviously we can then assist you further. So we're looking at economic futures in the UK, and I want to finish this unit, be it online or in person or a combination of both. I want to finish it by Monday the 1st of February. And these are the 7 key questions that make up this unit of work. What we're looking at is how the economy in the UK has changed, how we've gone from being a very heavy farming country, then a manufacturing country, and then a service country. How that has had an environmental impact on the UK, how it's affected our countryside areas with people moving from countries to cities and then back again. How it's impacted our infrastructure in the UK, whether it's created this north-south divide, and then finally number 7 there, what is the place of the UK in the wider world, and how has it changed our role in the wider world. Today we're going to be looking at how has the UK economy changed. 3 key areas we're going to look at under key question 1, how has the UK economy changed. We're going to look at how we can classify economic activity in the UK. We're going to look at how it's actually changed, looking at some graphs, and then we're going to look at the reasons why. So why has the economy gone through these changes? So there's a little activity here for you. See if you can match up the 4 different employment sectors with their definition. When I finish talking, if you press pause, you can then have a go at this activity. So let's see if you match them up correctly. So primary involves extracting raw materials from the natural environment, e.g. mining or farming. So primary is a type of industry if you're a farmer or you're a miner and you're getting raw materials out of the ground. Secondary is those who take the raw materials produced by the primary sector and process them into manufactured goods. So primary, get the raw materials out of the ground. Secondary, make something, do something with those raw materials. So it's manufacturing, you're making stuff. Next one, tertiary. That involves selling of services and skills. Teaching is a tertiary industry. Healthcare is a tertiary industry. Retail, working in a shop, is a tertiary industry. Finally, quaternary. So this consists of those industries providing information services like computing and ICT. It's what we might kind of call research and development, and the kind of high-level sector that involves a very high level of education, the quaternary sector. So that's the different ways we can classify economic activity in the UK. Primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary. So now that we know the different ways of classifying economic activity, we're going to have a look at how the economic activity in the UK has changed. We're up to this one, key question 2. So how has the economy changed? If you have a look on the screen, we have these 3 pie charts, one from 1800, one from 1900 and one from 2006. And we can see that they've been coloured blue for primary, orangey for secondary, grey for tertiary, and yellowish for quaternary. So what we're looking at here is that in 1800, 75% of the population of the UK were involved or employed in primary industries, and a lot of this would have been farming. And so that was basically where the UK's workers were. About 15% were involved in secondary and about 10% in tertiary. Now, if we move forward 100 years to 1900s, this is now the Industrial Revolution has taken place and has really started to take a hold. Let's have a look at how massively that has changed. Primary has gone from being the absolute biggest here at 75% to now being 30%. So it's now become the second rather than the most dominant employment sector in the UK. Secondary has taken over massively. So this is people moving from the countryside where there used to be farmers. They moved to the factories in places like Manchester and Liverpool to actually make things. And they built these industrial towns, which is still evident today, or old industrial houses, and they were involved in working in factories. But if we also look, we can see there was also quite a big increase in the tertiary sector. So that went from 10 to 15%. Then when we go ahead to 2006, we can see a massive change. Look at this. If we compare this to 1800, now it's almost a complete flip. In 2006, almost three quarters of the population were employed in this services sector. Only 15% in manufacturing, in secondary, only 2% in primary, so only 2% in farming and mining and that sort of activity. And we can see the emergence in 2006 of this new quaternary sector. So overall, when describing the change, we would say that the UK has gone from predominantly being a primary economy, or with workers employed in the primary sector, to an economy in 2006 where the vast majority of workers were employed in the tertiary sector. I've put data for 2015 there as well, just to kind of show quaternary since 2006 has grown a little. Tertiary has grown again from 74 to 78. Manufacturing has shrunk somewhat again, and primary stayed pretty much as it is. Now, throughout the lesson, I will put in some suggested tasks for your own revision notes. These aren't tasks I'm going to mark. They're not tasks you have to submit on Google Classroom. It just may be tasks you want to attempt to perhaps cement some of the stuff into your head. If you've understood everything so far and it's making perfect sense, then you don't have to do these tasks. Quite often in an exam, they will ask you to either complete a pie chart or to explain sections of a pie chart. So if you would like to, and I'm sure you all will, you can produce a pie chart to show the UK's employment structure in 2015. And if you Google how to draw a pie chart, it will tell you the maths behind doing that as well, so you can get the right degrees and angles. So we're already up to sub-question 3 here. So we're looking at how the UK economy has changed. We've looked at how we can classify the economy into primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary. We've looked at how it's changed from being predominantly a primary employment country to now predominantly tertiary employment. So we look at why. Why did that happen? So there's 3 key reasons as to why the UK economy changed, and the first one is called deindustrialisation. So there's been a decrease in the amount of manufacturing taking place in the country and a growth in this tertiary sector, as we saw in those pie charts. So one of the reasons for this is something called mechanisation or automation. And what that means is technology is improved so that now, and work has become far more efficient, so that now less and less people are needed to be employed because machines are doing the work that they once did. So if you no longer need to have that many people employed in factories or in manufacturing, then they're going to have to seek employment elsewhere. So that's mechanisation or automation. The second reason, the second part of deindustrialisation as to why our industries in the UK disappeared, or why certainly less people worked in the industries, is because in the UK, believe it or not, we have a much higher level of pay and far stricter health and safety standards. That means it's more expensive to make stuff in the UK because we've got to pay our workers more and we've got to make sure they stay safe. And so actually it became a lot cheaper to make stuff abroad, in China, Indonesia, Malaysia and other emerging economies. So another reason why our economy changed is because of deindustrialisation, which means our industries were no longer really profitable because it was cheaper to make stuff elsewhere. You might want to pause at this point and just have a read through what I've written on the slide there to make sure you understand what this word deindustrialisation means and why it changed the UK economy. Press pause and have a read. So there's another suggested task here. Again, if that's made perfect sense and you completely understand it, that's fine. But if you want to perhaps make some own revision notes, then I've got a little task here asking you to define the following key terms. Have a go at that if you wish. Some of those definitions, it's important that you have. So the second reason the UK economy has changed is because of government policies. So governments can have a huge impact on, well, do have a huge impact on how our economy changes, because they make decisions on investment and they make decisions on support for businesses. So which ones are they going to give tax breaks to? Which ones are they going to perhaps tax more? And we've kind of split up the government policies into three sections, three specific decision-making periods. So between 1945 and 1979, the UK government policy was to create state-run industries. So we had a National Coal Board, we had British Steel, we had British Rail, and these were state-run industries. They were owned and run by the government. Now, what happened with these was they became very inefficient and they lacked investment because there was no competition. And obviously, when you work for the state, there's certain workers' rights, etc., which are expected to be really upheld and followed. And so quite quickly, these became big companies that weren't very profitable, cumbersome perhaps, and the government would have to prop them up with money if they weren't making a profit. So the next section of decision making in terms of government policies was a period between 1979 and 2010. And during this period, the government decided to sell off state industries. They sold them off to private business. And this was to try and make them more competitive and more profitable. This process is called privatisation. So it was where state industries like British Rail was broken up and sold off in different parts, like Virgin Trains. I don't know which one runs in Manchester, in Liverpool, sorry. Certainly by me, it's Arriva Trains. And so these kind of big state-run organisations were brought up, were sold off. Another example is the water companies. So we used to have one water company for the whole of the UK, and that was kind of separated off into Welsh Water, etc., which are now owned by private companies. This did lead to some negative things. So it led to job losses, and it led to some older industries shutting down, which of course changed the structure of our economy. But it also led to some good things as well. These new private companies brought innovation, they brought efficiencies, and they transformed a lot of old derelict areas, were transformed into new financial centres. So the third section of government policy, the kind of next stage, 2010 onwards, what the government tried to do now would be they kind of recognise, oh, do you know what? We've maybe shifted the economy a bit too much and we're not really making stuff anymore. And we've got too many people employed in the services sector. And so what they wanted to do was to rebalance the economy. And they wanted to rebalance the economy by rebuilding manufacturing industries and kind of transforming the financial sector a bit. And they aim to do this by making improvements to the transport infrastructure of the UK. So you might have heard of HS2, which is this high-speed railway line trying to link London to other cities in the UK, and that will make it more attractive for foreign companies to perhaps locate around the UK. You might have heard of Crossrail, which made it easier to get quicker across London. So by trying to improve our infrastructure, they're trying to improve the speed at which we can move goods around the country, which will hopefully boost our manufacturing industry. They've also tried to encourage global firms to locate in the UK. So that is the way in which government policies have had a big impact on our changing economic structure in the UK. Now, here is another suggested task, and I do suggest you do this one. Somewhere I think it's a good idea just to summarise those three different government policies over those three eras, so they're kind of clear in your mind. So the final reason why the UK economy has changed is this thing called globalisation. Globalisation is where the goods and services and cultures are kind of spread all around the world. I'm not going to read through this slide. I'm going to just ask you to pause it and read it yourself. Okay, so we've looked at these three different areas. We looked at how we can classify economic activity in the UK: primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary. We've looked at how it's changed from being a country dominated by farmers and miners into a country now dominated by people working in the finance and services sectors. And then we looked at why this happened. We looked at, well, it was to do with government policies, it was to do with deindustrialisation, and it was to do with this thing called globalisation. So what I wanted to do now is to go back through the PowerPoint that's on Google Classroom. There's also some links to further information, and then have a go at answering these two exam questions, please. So describe the changes to the industrial structure shown in the pie charts below and suggest reasons for those changes. These need to be submitted by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, and we will mark them and give you feedback. Your next lesson will be uploaded in time for Thursday. Thank you.